Welcome back to the Best from the West. Gareth Hall with you. He joins me every Tuesday, basically, for the Best from the West. I speak of Peter Anthonisz. G'day, Pete.
Good morning to you, G. Hall.
I want to talk about that feature. I want to talk about Lucy Fiore, first of all. I don't know if I threw you under the bus today. I had her on Giddy Up this morning, and I said, Luce, great to have you on the show, but I don't watch as much WA. I watch a lot of WA racing, but not as closely, say, you do. And you told me that Lucy Fiore is the most improved jockey in WA, and hopefully I didn't put words in your mouth, but I said that you nearly rate her as the best jockey.
Well, look, I think over the last probably year or so, certainly this season, what we've seen with Lucy is her riding's just been super consistent. And I think she's always had a really good knack for getting the best out of a horse. And I mean, we've seen that in previous times, like she's even given trainership a go in her own right. But obviously her partner Brandon's now handling a lot of that when it comes to the training side of things. But for whatever reason, it's just given Lucy a bit of time just to get her hands back into gear. I think she's probably got some of the better hands that you would see in WA, just being able to keep a horse balanced and then get the most out of it in the straight. And also what I'm finding is that she's just a very versatile jockey and one that you can often trust to get the horse into the right part of the track. So for whatever reason, it just seems to have clicked of late. And I don't know if she gave you any insight as to why that might be.
Yeah, she did, actually. That's what I wanted to bring up with you this morning or this afternoon is that when I had a chat to her this morning on Giddy Up for the Western Whip Around, I said to her, what's the difference, say, compared to the last 18 months, say 5 years ago? And we all know she was one of the best apprentices that we've seen for quite some time in the West. And then she had success as a senior rider and she did well with her old man Justin. But then she basically said she lost interest a little bit. But then went away. She found love with Brandon. Now they own their own property. She's got a lot of money to pay off, I would imagine, with his farm now, with a mortgage over her head. But she's just putting in a lot more work and she's trying harder, basically. That's what it comes down to. She's become more professional. She's doing a lot of Ks and she's getting rewarded for the hard work that she is putting in. It's pretty simple at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny you mentioned that just for the more professional comment. I spoke about this with Damo and Pikey Time over the last couple of weeks, and you speak about these jockeys that can turn a corner and improve. But I think we have to remember, like a lot of these jockeys, they might have felt like they've been around forever, but in honesty, like they're still very young. So, you know, they can sort of go through their careers, as can all of us, and have one or two different, you know, gear changes, and, you know, you might go away and come back to it. And well, I think with a lot of the WA jockeys, what we're seeing is that some of the younger brigade coming through, I think Lucy and obviously Clint Johnson-Porter are probably the two, but they've been probably the most consistent. Perhaps at times we've expected a little bit too much of them, you know, because at the end of the day, you still have to get the most out of the horse. The horse needs to be in form, jockey needs to be in form, and as does the trainer and the stable. So, yeah, I think we perhaps maybe, you know, try and put a little bit too many expectations on some of these jockeys who are doing a very good job as it is.
And she's been riding for close to a decade now, Lucy. And I think, as I said to her, and it was like, she was so impressive today, Pete. Like I go, what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve in the next 5 or 6 years? She goes, well, actually, I've written them down. I want to ride 1,000 winners and win a Group 1. Like, that's when you know that, like, she's switched on. She's got the vision. She knows what she wants. She's got a purpose. And like the interview when she joined me, she spoke with a lot of clarity. And I guess that you can see that in her riding these days as well.
Yeah. I'm just looking at her stats just here. So if she wants to ride 1,000 winners, well, she's at 730 by my count at the moment, 110 in the last 12 months. So far this season, she's had 436 rides, 63 winners. So she's actually trending with that 14.4% winning strike rate. Yeah. That's better than her career to date. So she's in what I would say career best form. Look, you know, good luck to her with those goals. I mean, like the Group 1s in WA, I don't think it's necessarily as... but perhaps those listeners over East might not realise just how coveted they are because there's only 3 of them year in, year out. And hopefully that remains the case. And, you know, they're talking about trying to get the Gold Rush elevated longer term, but we still need to see some improvement with the fields going forward there. But when there's only 3 a year, they are very much sought after.
I said there's probably going to be opportunities across here, like tough for jockeys to get. We saw it with the Melbourne Cup, Caulfield Cups and a few of the other handicap races. It's hard to get jockeys that can ride 52 like Lucy can. Just have to give her a bit of notice, she said. But she proved her quality in that Mungerup sprint there with Final Siren. First go to 1,300. But that horse just travelled so sweetly for her on Sunday afternoon, and he never looked like not getting the trip.
No, and that was the funny thing, wasn't it? I think a lot of people were just a little bit iffy on how Final Siren was first of all going this preparation, because he was, I guess, relatively plain to start before in what was only a 4-horse field. But then suddenly 1,000 metres up to the 1,300 for the first time, and really he never looked like losing, as you said. So, look, tremendous ability to rate a horse out in front, Lucy. I think that's probably one of her strengths in a state where quite often jockeys can be a little bit apprehensive about going forward in the first place. But what we've seen so far in the last 12 months or so is that she hasn't been afraid, especially if drawn wide, to just have a look early and just go, right, if my horse begins well, can I get this horse into a good part of the field in the first 4 or so, and not panicking if she gets stuck out 3 wide or something like that.
Other talking points I want to have a chat to you about with WA racing. We had Stefan Valhalla on just before as well to kick off the West from the Best on this Tuesday, and Aztec Ruler represents WA on Saturday in the Dillon. That's that final race there at Sandown. He's a terrific. It was a terrific. I enjoyed my chat with him. He said he lived his dream by finishing second there with Aztec Ruler in that Group 3 at Flemington down the straight. But it was fascinating listening to his story. Like, when he first left Neville Parnham's as his foreman, he still did he went to uni to finish off his teaching career because he wanted to make sure that he had a backup if it didn't go to plan with his training career. But so far, so good. It might have taken him a little while, but he's building up quite the team at the moment.
Well, it's only a very small team, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we've seen a lot of his horses just continuing to perform well. Even his last 5 starts, we've had Soldmel win twice, as well as running third. Aztec Ruler ran second down the straight first go, and Ice Pick Nick resumed. That horse was with Danny Morton previously, but Steph's got that horse going particularly well, settled back in that field and rattled home. And I think it's, if that horse can draw a gate next start, I think the market will be all over it. My initial gut instinct watching Aztec Ruler is if that horse had a previous start down the straight, it probably wins and it beats It's Our Time, which is, that's a proper straight horse. I think there's no other way of putting it. So, look, I thought it was a super impressive performance. I know they didn't go particularly quick up front, but you can't really you can't do too much about that when the horse is clearly having something of a barrier trial. But I really like the way that Jai McNeil got along with the horse, got the best out of him just over the last couple 100 metres. And look, I think the race at Sandown, we'll wait and see what the barrier draw throws up, but I'd say more than likely the 1,400 is going to be perfect for him. And the way that Sandown's been playing, if he can draw a gate, settle first half of the field, he's going to give it a shake. So looking forward to seeing what he throws up there this Saturday.
Jai McNeil's confident. He wrote him this morning, gave Stefan a positive report, and he indicated just exactly what you just said there, 1,400 metres Sandown, 2 big ticks for him. So he's going to be hard to beat, I reckon.
Yeah, I think that was probably the main thing, is that just coming off that Gold Rush performance, it's obviously a couple of weeks between runs, and then coming over to Melbourne, how is the horse going to react? And, that's even before you throw in the variable of having the straight race as well. But, the horse basically spent the first half of the race looking at the grandstand, having a real good look around at his surrounds. But I was very impressed with the way that he attacked the line, just being able to pick up. And, I mean, again, this is one of my little queries, I guess, when it comes to WA. I'm surprised they don't utilise the Pinjarra straight more often with trainers and horses trying to target these races at Flemington. And, we've seen it quite a number of times over the years that horses have turned up at Flemington, they've run down the straight, but they've never seen a straight race, despite the fact that WA has Pinjarra at its disposal. I'd love to see that track better utilised over the next couple of years, especially with horses wanting to travel over to Melbourne.
Smooth Cheetah was impressive at Albany. Indiana Weiner. Tell us a little bit about Indiana, because she's a trainer, I think, based there at Albany, and she's building quite an impressive team at the moment. And Smooth Cheetah was so impressive on debut.
Yeah, exactly right. And look, I must say that I don't know a great deal about her personally, but I do have a couple of friends that are in racing that have obviously had a fair bit to do with her. And look, I think probably the key thing just watching her progression is that she's getting horses fit, and probably she's getting them to perform over market expectations because of that. But she's obviously had a couple of nice horses. Sky Talk has shown a bit over its career so far as well. And look, it's just one of those, there is a couple of younger trainers in WA or, relatively inexperienced trainers, I guess you would say, but they're putting together a nice little CV early. And it's exciting to see because we've seen such a dominant sort of period over the last 10 years or so, the same trainers, whether it's Team Williams or, Simon Miller or Neville Parnham or whoever it is. But it's always good to see these younger trainers coming through and just being able to strike while the iron's hot.
Boy Hill hasn't missed London's image, but that's been a credit to his training ability to get this filly just to turn up, and she keeps on turning up.
Look, I honestly, I couldn't believe how well that filly won there on the weekend. Coming off what was, I guess, could only be described as a brutal preparation. I mean, he didn't hold back when it came to placing her. She's raced in the Burgess Queen, won that. She's then come into the Placid Arc back in distance, which I don't think anyone necessarily thought that was going to ever happen. Then turned up again in the WA Guineas the week after, and then once again in the Sir Ernest Lestier Classic. And look, all of those tempos as well, very fast, very fast, very fast, fast again there on the weekend. And she didn't even lead that. That was perhaps the other thing, is can she actually win from a position when she's just settling behind a hotter speed? It doesn't even seem to matter. That horse is just absolutely airborne. And look, I'd love to get an insight into what Boy Hill's done, because I think it's fair to say her 2-year-old form was fine, but it didn't necessarily indicate that she was going to be this, I guess, I described her as Pride of Jenny Light, because that's how she was racing there in the Perth Carnival.
Yeah, Boy Hill will join me straight after we chat to you, Pete, so I'll ask him that question. There's been some training performance with her. And speaking of Saturday, there was some nice performances. Hostile Talk got the job done. All play. Trevor Andrews' team's going great guns. Looks like Michael Grantham and Bob Peters have really started to click now. He Quinella, of course, the 5th race with Noteworthy winning there. And Our Naughty Secret for Stephen Wolf took out the 2-year-old race, a filly by Omel Talk, at a big price. Speaking of the 2-year-olds, is there any standout 2-year-olds with the Magic Millions just around the corner? And before you know it, it'll be the Karrakatta Plate will be here.
Yeah, it's not too far away, is it? Look, I think you mentioned Trevor Andrews before. I think his filly Luana Miss, who won a fortnight ago, I believe as long as she's pulled up okay, she'll be heading to the Magic Millions. Look, it was a very messy race. They slowed right down in the middle of the race, but the way that she just was able to pick up and sprint, and Sean O'Donnell was basically half sitting up on the line, it was a very impressive turn of foot over the last 200 metres, and I think she's the horse that just seems to be peaking at the right time. Yeah. Her trials before that were very impressive. But look, it's difficult trying to pin down which of these horses is going to time their run to the Magic Millions. We've still got a couple of weeks to go. And it wouldn't surprise me if one of the trialers is the one to be the main danger heading towards that race. So it may well be a capacity field, but we also might have a few unexposed horses in the Magic Millions over here.
All right, then. And just the last one before we let you go. We had Bob Peters on the Western Whip Around on Giddy Up on Monday morning. That story was so brave, it was remarkable. There was 8 horses that lost their lives, sadly, in that terrible accident there when someone went across the road and ran straight into that horse transport truck carrying, I think, 16 horses. 8 horses lost their lives, and Bob lost, I think, 5 horses, or 3 or 5 horses anyway. But one of the survivors was so brave, and it was remarkable that he was able to survive that crash. He was at the vets for 6 to 7 weeks, and he was given a lot of time to recover from Bob. Bob and the family looked after him, and now he's winning a race at Mornington. It's truly a remarkable story.
It was one of those stories when I think a lot of the people who have a fondness for WA racing heard that story. It was just a complete shock. It was a real horror story, to be honest. I mean, you don't really hear anything like that happening in racing, let alone just in daily life. So, look, Bob's one thing, he's patient. And I think that's more than anything is he's seeing his horses just being able to mature with time. And that's obviously what they've done with this horse in particular. 4-year-old only having his second start. He's with the right stable. John Leakes obviously had a really good association with Bob over the years. They've got it right sometimes. They haven't got it right all the time. But more than anything, again, he's another good conditioner of horses, and he clearly just gets along with Bob. So I remember when they first announced that training partnership, it was almost like a curiosity. It's like, hang on, where's this come from? Yeah. But obviously Bob's picked out the Leak camp in particular with a view to going and sending the right horses to them and just letting them take their time and just build and develop as they go along into nicer stayers. So, look, so brave, well named. Obviously, had to be after surviving that incident. Can't wait to see what the scope of that horse is, just for the narrative more than anything, Gareth. It's always great to see Cerise and white horses running around across Australia. It's how I grew up through racing.
100%.
Cheer these horses home when you're standing there at Ascot or at Belmont and seeing them race over East. So although we often look at Bob's horses and say, there's another one for, the dynasty of WA racing, at the same time, without the Cerise and white, it would be quite an empty feeling, I think.
Totally agree, 100%, Pete. Before you let you go, I've got some winners for you tomorrow. Yorga Pride will win the first.
Yes, I should go pretty short Yorga Pride.
Yeah. Housewife. I think Grand Alana Williams will have a big day. And I got a little bit of time for Promising, speaking of Trevor Andrews.
Yes, should map well, that horse.
Yeah.
In the same race, I thought if Kenny Rock went up a price, I'd probably have something on that galloper.
Okay.
Just wasn't able to go forward. And then in the last, again, I'm just looking at the price of Coolora for the Neville Parnham team. Chris jumps back on board. The horse hasn't been suited the last three, but draw's really soft here. So I'll be looking for an each-way price, but I think Coolora might be able to hold off what looks like to be the stablemate in Rummel's Goddess. I think they'll go up the first two in the market.
Love your work, Pete. We'll do this next week. Enjoyed the chat as always.
Sounds good, Gareth. Speak to you then.
There's Peter Anthonisz. This is the West. West is best here on this Tuesday afternoon, or best from the West. I'll get it right.